Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful June the 3rd, 2020. Rondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Doing okay, Charlton. You know, we like to celebrate heroes in this country, and I'd like to celebrate the heroes who are truly out there every day in our medical field, Charlton, our nurses, our doctors, our first responders, all of those who've done such an admirable job here during the pandemic, and also assisting those who have been injured during the protests.
That's very well said. We celebrate everybody doing good things. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, Big C Sports is powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV or you'll be looking at a still picture. I also want to say there's so much going on in the world that we always want to pay attention to, but we want to make sure we always pay attention to our Veterans Crisis Hotline. Big C, they are really experienced, especially in a time like these, of making sure that people can get some help. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the National Suicide Hotline, Charlton, is there to help everybody in this time of need. It's always been there to help the veterans, who we've been losing some 22 a day in America to suicide, as well as the young people, Charlton, who have tragically fallen in that ill-fated disease of suicide also, Charlton. But when we seek out mental health for people in America on a daily basis, and even more so now when we think about the crises that are going on nationally, as people are dealing with all these unrehearsable facts that have been occurring that we see daily and nightly on television.
Yeah.
The veterans are being forgotten about, Charlton, and we got to find a way to focus attention back on the veterans. Just as the president is taking the interest away and focus away from every pandemic that is occurring in America, he's constantly trying to deflect from one thing to another to stop showing his failure. But his failure to the veterans of this country, Charlton, is very noticeable. And the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number does more than the president has ever done.
800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255 and get some help. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can get some help. Also, very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, ATT, Uverse, TV53, home of the San Francisco Giants. And when you reach out to them, just tell them Big C Essential. The goal is simple. Recruit 100 real estate brokers, put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. Sports teams do it. And you can let real estate work for you with TV. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. For those of you looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com, and you can get some help in real estate also. Big C, man, I've been pausing. I was listening to people that were saying, as there's so many people just exercising their constitutional rights all over the country, and everybody's just trying to find a way to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And this is all really that I feel that many African-American people have ever wanted. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is a well-known phrase in the United States Declaration of Independence. And when we're not busy playing sports, I think people think about it more when we're not looking at sports, being distracted. There's three phrases, the phrases that give three examples inalienable rights, which the Declaration says that have been given to all humans by the Creator, and which the governments are created to protect. Big C, we all just want to have liberty and justice for all. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, black people have asked for that ever since they were brought to this country over 400 years ago. But it seems the one thing that white society has constantly denied them are not wanting to give them. It's like as we look and address racism in this country, Charlton, who created racism? And yet they're saying that they don't understand why black people feel that they're being opposed to in this country. When you look at everything that's done on a daily basis in this country, Charlton, to oppress black people, to hold black people back from their inalienable rights, Charlton, to be able to vote, to be able to have proper medical care, to have proper employment, proper housing, Charlton. That's all they ask. That's the life and liberty and pursuit of happiness. But yet, when you're treated like a criminal as a society, and you're always treated as a suspect, you can never be comfortable.
Yeah, and we all have to realize, and again, you and I have our own opinions. I don't say all white people, because there's people good and bad on every spectrum. So we know that racism is prejudice, discrimination, antagonism directed against someone of a different race or background, our belief that one race is superior. All life came from Africa anyway. But everybody has, at some point in time, we got to look at that man in the mirror and look at people as being good or bad, and I think that will help us get at least a starting point. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when we look at antagonism, all we have to do is look at what the president did yesterday. And there's no place in the Bible, Charlton, where Jesus or any of the disciples talk about running of people away from a church, which is what the president did yesterday. We've never seen that in America, Charlton, where we had an elected person take law enforcement to run away nonviolent people from a house of worship, Charlton, just so that they could take a photo op, not to go inside, not to pray, not to even be able to hold the Bible correctly, Charlton. It would be nice if he could have opened that Bible and stated a passage from that Bible to show peace and love for America, that he understands the pain that we're going through as a country.
Yeah.
But he was only self-serving once again yesterday.
Well, I think that's part of how it's been, because it worked. It worked for him to get him to this point, but we will have a new and a different administration come around when we get to the election, Big C. But I want to just make sure, because I dialogue with so many people of different colors, and when they hear, you guys keep saying that white people, all white, I said, well, that's Big C's thoughts, but I do want to bring up to your attention also, because we gotta fact check ourselves too. And here are some companies that are giving out millions of dollars.
Can I interject one thing, Charlton?
Yeah.
On what you just said? Can I laminate on that a little bit?
Yeah.
People are saying, you just said something to me that people are saying, you're saying all white people are bad. Let me tell you something. When a criminal sees an act and it doesn't bother them, because that's something that they're accustomed to dealing with, okay? Well, you know, if you steal from a thief, he can account for every penny. This is the reason why honest people and honest companies get ripped off all the time, because they don't sit there and count every penny. For people to be offended by what I said, if you're not a racist, you know, if you're racist or you're anti-racist, that's what you look at. But for somebody to be offended by the mere words, think about how many words have been thrown at black people over time. And they have just had to live with it, Charlton. They've had to accept it. All the denigration that has gone to black people. And when somebody asks that, ask them, do they feel that all black people are bad? Ask them, why do black people get profiled? Always ask them that question. Well, why do black people get profiled? Let them answer some of their own questions sometimes.
Well, I disagree with you, though, so I'm not going to ask them to speak for you. You got to speak for yourself. The whole world can hear what you're saying. But I want to ask your thoughts on something, because I hate being lumped in when they say all black people. I want to share this one story. When I was in high school, there was something that happened, and a lot of the black community got together, and they went to the school because something happened to a black kid. I think there was a fight. They expelled the black kid, let the white kid stay in school. Later in the day, a lot of the parents found out. And would you believe that there was a phone call made to my household, and they told my mother that I was being expelled from school because I was part of something that I was not a part of. But they lumped every black person into it, Big C. My mother came up to the school, and called the classroom that I was a part of, and I was in class. And she made the white principal apologize to me. And I'll never forget how red he turned. All he had to do was check if I was in class, but he lumped me in with all the other black kids that left the campus. I don't want to do that to white people. It's not fair. But I want to ask your thoughts. Here are some companies that are giving millions of dollars to help fight anti-racism efforts, Big C. They want to fight the racism. Together they stand in solidarity with the black community, from Facebook to Apple to Levi, T-Mobile, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Spotify, Netflix, Amazon. So when we say white people, we may as well take all those people off the list and lump them into the side that's been antithetical. Does that make sense to you, Big C? Your thoughts?
No, it doesn't, Charlton, because when I make the statement white people, I'm identifying a race. And what I am doing by identifying a race is that I'm letting those who feel that they have done something wrong, that touches them, Charlton. They feel it. They understand what I'm saying by my language that I'm using, Charlton. If you have done something wrong, what did Jesus say? He without sin cast the first stone. Didn't he say that? And that's the same thing I'm saying by white people, Charlton. If you have not done any atrocities or been mean or ostracized black people, then you have a clean conscience. What I say should not bother you in the least bit. But if you're harboring some ill feelings and some skeletons in your closet, you just can't say because I treat black people nice in public, and when I go home, I change into another person, Charlton. This happens so often. There's a public image and there's a private image. And I deal with people, white and black, Hispanic, Asian, and they're all like that, Charlton. There's different images when they go home. But these people harbor a deep, hidden secret that they just don't want it to come out. It's just like Jesus said, he without sin cast the first stone. Ask them that question when they question me.
Well, I think what you got to do is ask yourself that question, because if you just listen to it as you're saying it when you get some time to think about it. And how would you feel if some white Americans came out and said, all black people? I mean, just think about that for a second. I want to add this also. The NFL was also criticized by filmmaker Ava DuVernay for being hollow and disingenuous. Former NFL quarterback that we talked about many times, Colin Kaepernick, has not found work in the league. It was since 2017, I believe, after he would protest against police brutality and the racist treatment of black Americans in the United States by kneeling. But at the same time, it has been many people who fought against slavery to end it. They were also white. We just can't say that they're part of the antagonist, Big C. That's not fair, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, let me give you a statement that I would make. I played for a couple different teams, Charlton, after I left my collegiate career. And when I went to teams, it was normally an opponent that I had played against before.
Yeah.
And I would make it be known when I walked in the locker room. And this is the true statement that I would make, Charlton. I would tell people, I don't like white people and I hate rednecks. Other than that, we're brothers, okay? I would tell everybody that in the locker room, and I was animate about that because it was a black and white team, Charlton, like it's always been. I've always played in. But I also knew during the time that I played and the time that I grew up in that racism was rampant. And I had been called many bad names by these players that were now my teammates. I had been called the N-word on many occasions, the MF, the SB, all of these things, Charlton.
Yeah.
But I let them know when I walked into the locker room what I did not appreciate, but what I would accept. If you wanted to be my brother and my teammate, I could accept that. If you wanted to spew me with racism and say that it was white versus black, I could not accept that. So I laid down the gauntlet that I was acceptable of dealing with you as a person, as a man of integrity, but not as a man of color.
Well, everybody has their own opinion, Big C, and we don't have to agree on everything. I just want to make sure going forward that I believe in treating people based on what they do or don't do. I remember going to the dentist, Big C. I had a pain in my tooth, and they took an x-ray, and they found a cavity. And what the dentist did was he filled the cavity in the bad tooth. He didn't fill all the teeth that were good. He only took the bad tooth and fixed it. He didn't say all my teeth were bad, just the one that had the cavity. It's just a thought. I want to say the NFL families also is greatly saddened by the tragic events across the country. The protesters' reaction and the incidents reflect the pain and anger and frustration that so many people of all colors feel if they're decent. And then I think condolences go out to families of Mr. George Floyd and those who've lost loved ones, including the family of Breonna Taylor in Louisville, and also Mr. Ahmaud Arbery and cousins of Tracy Walker of the Detroit Lions. But truth be told, there's a lot of people who experience tragedies. We've had 4 police officers shot in St. Louis. I think some people it's happening all over the country. So I want to make sure that we call for healing, but I want to get your thoughts because Ava DuVernay, she wrote a movie. She made a movie, I think it's called 13th. It's about the 13th Amendment. And there's a lot of people saying the NFL is kind of grandstanding when they had a chance to do right. They chose not to. Do you think they're making the right effort now? They never really atoned for saying that they were wrong. They just want to say, hey, we stand with the people kneeling. Big C, your thoughts?
No, I believe for me it's a hollow gesture from the NFL and the commissioner, Roger Goodell.
Yeah.
Roger Goodell had an opportunity to keep Colin Kaepernick employed. He had an opportunity to abstain and stop all of the madness that was going on by the owners and teams not signing Colin Kaepernick. Just as well as Senator Amy Klobuchar had an opportunity 10 years ago, Charlton, to thwart this incident just occurred a week ago.
Yeah.
If she had did her civic duty as an elected law enforcement judicial person, Charlton, and bring that officer to trial 10 years ago, we would not be going through this as a country. As they say, the straw that breaks the camel back, Charlton, Senator Klobuchar had an opportunity to keep that straw off of the camel's back, but she chose not to because that officer looked like her. And then when we look at this statement from the commissioner, as we talk about social justice, and we've had players in the NFL lose their jobs because they fought for social justice, Charlton.
Yeah.
Teams would not sign them the contracts because they fought for social justice, saying that we don't want this in our organization.
Yeah.
You guys have to go out there and live in the community. That's a disconcern to us. All you need to do is come perform for us. We don't care about the problems you or your social structure has outside this business.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of current events that people are looking at, and there remains much more to do as a country, as a league. I think we need a lot of police reform. I really believe that the criminal justice system is broken, and it was never designed for the masses of white people to fill the prisons. It's been designed for people of color. There's a lot of money made, especially in private prisons, as I was told by a white lady whose father works in the private penitentiary industry. They make a lot of money locking up black and brown people, and a lot of the fast food people eat is made in the prisons for 25 cents an hour. So it's by design. It's not that it just happened, Big C. So whether people feel the NFL or Roger Goodell is doing the right thing, that's their own choice. Everybody has a right to their opinion. But I want to just ask you one more time, just because I can't speak for her, but there's a lot of times when you think about it, the response from filmmaker Ava DuVernay, shame on you, this is beyond horrible, plus disingenuous, this is a lie, your actions show who you are, you've done nothing to try to help things be better when you could have taken a stance and told the whole league, but you have to listen first. And a lot of times we all don't listen. God gave us all one mouth and 2 ears to listen. Sometimes we talk more than we listen. But I think the NFL should have addressed it first with Colin Kaepernick before they took this stance on saying that he's become an anti-NFL and it would have cost them money. I think they should have done that. And maybe they're trying to do it now. They're just trying to do it through the back door. Big C, your thoughts?
Yeah, but you talk about one mouth and have to be heard, Charlton. How many mouths spoke out from the black part of the NFL, Charlton? For a long time. This is nothing new. You can go back to the 60s when black athletes spoke out, Charlton. Lionel Taylor, Jim Brown, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Muhammad Ali, Bill Russell, Mitchell from the Redskins. These athletes spoke out about social injustice in America. This is in the 60s.
Yeah.
We're talking 50 years ago. Black athletes were saying then what's going on now. And nothing has changed. So when you talk about dialogue, when is the dialogue going to start from the white side? The blacks have been trying to have dialogue, Charlton, for 400 years in this country, saying we shall overcome. Thinking about that. We shall overcome. Blacks have had hymns and everything talking about their displeasure with this country. Being kind, being polite, being, peaceful marches, peaceful protests, Charlton, nonviolent. Blacks have preached it. Think about all the nonviolent protests over the last 70 years in America, Charlton, that blacks have done yet they were met with violence.
Yeah.
The blacks were met with violence being peaceful. And it's still going on today. Over the past 70 years, count up the number of times blacks have been attacked and assaulted by law enforcement and private citizens over the last 70 years just wanting to have dialogue. Think about how many black lives have been lost just wanting to have dialogue.
Yeah, we all, I mean, I can just say from my own experience, in my lifetime, I've had people of different shades of skin color that stepped up to rescue me when I was drowning. So I just know everybody has in their own experience what they've had in experience. I want to bring something up that shows directly in something that I'm not shocked to hear that it happened. In the NBA, and I know Adam Silver sent out a letter to the NBA family telling them how to address issues, and some owners are saying don't even talk about it, Dolan from the New York Knicks. But it was today in Sacramento, California. They have a play-by-play announcer by the name of Grant Naper. He's been with them for about 30 years. And he had said some back-and-forth argument with DeMarcus Cousins, who's played for the Lakers and the Warriors and the Pelicans since playing in Sacramento. And then Chris Webber, who also broadcast on TNT. And Doug Christie, who played all the soul with Chris Webber back in the day when the Kings were in the playoffs all the time. And he's a host on the show with Grant Naper. And then there's a Matt Barnes who also played for the Sacramento Kings as well as other teams. Well, Grant Naper, his program, I will just say his owner of the team is Vivek Ranadive, and he's a person of color. And so a lot of the stuff that's been going on for years, where even callers would call in and he shouted down, I don't want to hear Black Lives Matters. He had that enmity. And so they said some things about him. Well, his station fired him today, and the Kings organization let him resign as opposed to firing him. And that's the same thing that I've talked to you about before. This stuff has gone on many, many years, but he was protected. He got the benefit of the doubt. It never cost him to say, I don't want to hear Black Lives Matter stuff, especially in today's time. So I guess being antagonistic against other African-American players, the league had to make a decision. Do they want to side with the guy who is antagonistic and everybody knows it, especially the players, or do they want to side, with the players who say, hey, this is not the time to be antagonistic? Mix of your thoughts.
I guess the best question for that would you say that he was racist or anti-racist in his statement?
I don't know the man. At the same time,
I'm just saying in his statements. I'm not saying him as a person. I said would you consider his statement racist or anti-racist?
When someone says all lives matter, I don't consider it racist. I don't consider it, and that's my opinion though. I've seen racism when I was looking at the barrel of a gun for getting my driver's license. That to me was racist, and the cop was white and I'm black. But people can always say or not say the right words. You and I don't always say the right words on air. But I think when people are saying that he was fired for saying that all lives matter so that Black Lives Matter, trying to give it less thought, I think what happened with him was there's a lot of African-American players that have already seen behind the scenes that vitriol that he would shout down when a caller called in and they would want to talk about Black Lives Matter. I don't want to talk about that stuff. This is not a political station. He would get very angry. And I know a lot of people felt that, and oftentimes they'll put a co-host on with them. They have to smile and giggle and grin, and you're right, Grant, because they want to keep their job. But that just happened today. It's a prominent NBA broadcaster, and at some point in time, we all got to listen to get the other person's point of view. But the owner fired him because he'd heard it many, many times, and he put his foot down. That's just my opinion, Big C, but everybody has that moment in time. I want to ask your thoughts when it comes to this, because nobody's really thinking about it. When I saw there was images of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., and to see armed guards at the Lincoln Memorial, and there were people praying and protesting, and we have freedom of speech. That was a little shock to my stomach, but everybody has to get through this together. The essence of resilience leadership, whereas organizations used to be described as an angle of change, maybe fixing the problem, we still have COVID-19. The pandemic is rewritten the rules of how people deal with each other in modern times, and we need leaders, in my opinion, that can be resilient and inclusive in such times, but not everybody believes that. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this country is yearning for leadership and direction, which we don't have. We have an individual who is confused right now running this country, Charlton. When you're calling in the military to turn on its own citizens, you're asking the military to potentially go out and kill American citizens on American soil because you are afraid, because you have lost control, because you have a direction or an answer for any of the problems that are going on in America. We've had systemic racism forever in America, Charlton. All of a sudden, we come up with COVID-19. You have no answer for COVID-19. Oh, it's just going to go away. It's going to be disappear. It's going to be a miracle. As soon as the weather gets warm, it's going to disappear. It's going to be. You lied to the public, Charlton. As we reached 100,000 American lives lost, Charlton, from COVID-19, you had to deflect. You had to go something else. You had to find something else to point to. And this is what's occurring every time. As the president should have been addressing this situation that happened in Minneapolis with Mr. Floyd's death, Charlton, he never addressed it to the public, calling for calm, that, he would look into this person. He never did that. He never assured society that he was in control.
Yeah.
And as this thing has manifested and escalated beyond, Charlton, everybody's ever thoughts of it, he never thought that whites and blacks would come together in this country with all the vitriol that he has used continuously to divide, to race bait, Charlton. This is what he has done to separate America. Now all of a sudden America is coming back together, and he can't understand how he's lost control of that, Charlton. So he's trying to bring in the military to put an end to that.
Yeah, like I said, it's so many times when I look at my own life and I look at people of all colors and women, the women's movement, everybody's trying to have the chance to form a more perfect union. But I was disheartened when I saw President Trump and how he ordered the police, the Secret Service, to use tear gas and rubber bullets and shock grenades so that he could walk across the street from the White House to do a photo op in front of a church with the Bible held upside down in his hand. And to me, this is not what leadership is. But some people like Rush Limbaugh, they applaud it because they secretly agree with the message and the dog whistles, and they can say it for themselves if they do or don't. But I just thought that even if you're the person that votes for POTUS and you have children that go to school and they're trying to learn so they can have a better life, that we live in a great country, and now when you go to pray or to even speak freedom of speech, we're met with this military state, which is not what the United States is supposed to be. And it won't be that way much longer. Things are going to change come around time for the election when people get out and vote. But that, to me, I want to know, did that leave a stain on your spirit, Big C? Your thoughts?
It left a stain on my spirit, Charlton. It left a stain on anybody who believes in God and a higher being spirit, Charlton. Because never have we seen this before in society, Charlton, where a person of leadership has ordered the military to run people away from a house of worship, Charlton, where people go and seek, solitude, to seek deliverance,
For
Charlton,
prayer.
to seek a higher being. He doesn't know anything about the church, Charlton. The president hasn't been to church since St. Patrick's Day 2019. That's the last time he's been to church. You think about this. Every president that we have seen gone to a church, Charlton, they have kneeled and prayed.
Yeah.
They have opened up the Bible. I don't believe this man even owns the Bible, Charlton. If you look at how he held the Bible, he held it like it was an abstract object, Charlton.
Yeah.
Something that he was totally unfamiliar with. You treat the Bible like the Bible is your child because it is sanctimonious. He knows nothing about that. And then to use that as a facade for a photo op, thinking that he's bringing in evangelicals, Charlton.
Yeah.
Evangelicals are more than just the people who voted for him. And he ostracized a lot of them that voted for him by that act of running people away from a house of worship.
Yeah, I know. We're going to take what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. We're going to talk things, it's real. I love having real talk. We don't always have to agree, but what we do got to do is have dialogue. We'll have more dialogue when we come back in just a moment. All right, we're back from what's called the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts, the apps that I love. Anywhere in the world, say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate that. You know, if you think about it, we have access to the airwaves. That's why I want people to fact check what we say. We're not perfect. We can't please everybody, but we at least are trying to form a more perfect union, a more perfect podcast, even though we all have our own opinions. Another African-American reporter detained 2 nights ago in New York was working and documenting, along with his crew, the chaos in the streets of New York City, mainly caused by POTUS even telling the governors, if you don't do your job and get tough on these people, whether he calls them thugs or criminals, that if you don't dominate the protesters, which are American citizens, then he's going to get tough. And so when the police decided to detain and arrest him for working, that would be like everyone, even Rush Limbaugh, to have the police come into your studio and Sean Hannity, and all because he doesn't like what you're saying, to arrest you for using your freedom of speech. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the most troubling part about that, again, it was another African-American reporter that was arrested. We saw it happen in Minneapolis, and now we've seen it happen in New York. For going out during your job, you have your press credentials, you show it to the police officers, and that is not enough as an African-American, working in media, Charlton, is that you're no more protected than anybody on the street, which is wrong. And, you get the governor comes out and the mayor comes out and apologizes, but that's after the fact, Charlton. You should not be taken and lumped up as a criminal for reporting the news.
Yeah, and I know that President Bush came out and said some things. I don't know what he said, and I don't know if you were able to hear what President
Bush and former First Lady Laura Bush sent out a statement today about their condolences and the problems that's going on in America and the cry for leadership.
Yeah.
And they felt that they needed to stay quiet as long as they have, Charlton, because they are not the people who are running the country, and they just tried not to be divisive in making a statement, but they can no longer sit silently, Charlton, watching the atrocities that are going on in America and the disintegration of our government and our people. And so they made this statement and appealing for compassion and understanding and having dialogue in America.
You know what's interesting about that, Big C? When we had, after the 9/11 attacks, everybody has their own political opinion. But George Bush, we always said that sports will galvanize people. When George Bush went out to, I think it was Yankee Stadium, I believe it was Yankee Stadium, and he threw up the first pitch and got a resounding standing ovation, I thought that was heard all over the universe because it brought Americans together after a horrendous event. He didn't do it in the church. He didn't do it in Congress, in front of Congress or the Senate. He didn't do it in the Rose Garden. He went to a sports stadium and tried to bring the whole country together, and that is really missing. I believe that we need more of that, and I really respect President Bush for that. And I just hope, and the First Lady, former First Lady, I know we'll hear more from President Obama. I'm just hoping that we can have that type of leadership. We don't all have to agree. But the man went to where people congregate, and that's around sporting events, and that's what we're doing. People don't have to agree with what we're doing, but I still want us all to engage in the dialogue. Your thoughts on what Bush did compared to what we're seeing today, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, to me, the most memorable part about President George W. Bush, Charlton, in New York was when he went to Ground Zero. He went amongst the people, Charlton, amongst the workers, amongst the people who were trying to still save lives at Ground Zero. And the most memorable moment that I have, Charlton, is when he stood up on a pile of rubble and he put his arm around one of the fire battalion captains, Charlton. Not only that, he took his hat and put his hat on his head and said, "We're all Americans here."
Yeah.
And he said, "I want everybody to hear me. And the people who did this, they will be hearing from us soon." I think that was the most realistic moment of a president being a human being that I had witnessed, Charlton, up until that date. Because he went amongst the people. Secret Service said don't do it. But these people need me. They need to know that I am a part of them and I hurt like them.
Yeah.
That I understand their pain and agony as a country and as a people. That was real, Charlton. That was genuine. It was not scripted. It was not like at Yankee Stadium where, it was all set up. He went out there at a moment's notice, Charlton, where they didn't have a chance to secure an area. He was presidential and he was human, beyond comparison to anybody else.
Yeah, and I have a lot of love and appreciation for the Bush family. And irrespective of politics, people don't always agree with everything, but there are times we can be right and wrong because we're all human. But
let me inject one other thing to that, Charlton. His father passed away a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And many people don't know who the last person is to see his father. And the last person to see his father before he passed was President Barack Obama. Not his son, the previous president, but President Barack Obama was the last person to be with former President Bush prior to him passing.
It's amazing. We all need to hear those stories of positivity and how we all come together, because at the end of the day, we all want liberty and justice for all. At least I believe that. Would you believe? I remember going back, it was in 1994 when you think about it, Big C, and we go back to all the things that have happened in this great country. Cape Town, South Africa, the government bans all contact sports due to the spread of COVID-19. This is in 2020. Do you remember how the world stood together to end apartheid in South Africa in 1994? And now we're still fighting police brutality in the United States 26 years later. And the president of the United States is calling for the military to take over and stop protesters. Could you imagine if that had happened in South Africa? We would still have apartheid. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we've had it happen in South Africa. It's going on right now in China. It goes on in many other countries around the world, Charlton, where you have a police state. You have it in Russia, where the military comes in and attacks its citizens. We've been watching that in Hong Kong for the past week. And that is where Trump is getting his inspiration from, watching the news, what's going on in Hong Kong, to bring in the military and foil the American citizens.
Tiananmen Square, I remember that also, Big C, when I was in college. Think about the tensions that POTUS has caused, and people, whether it's Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, ourselves, anybody else, when you think about it, federal prisons right now, I think it's 122 federal prisons. Remember I told you there's a lot of private prisons too? Federal prisons, 122, have been on lockdown because of that rough them up and sick, vicious dogs on them mentality. Well, people hear that weapon, that dog whistle, in prisons too. And a lot of people, you still have your rights when you're in prison not to be abused by anyone, another inmate, or someone supposed to be, serving and protecting you. What I'd like to just put out there for people, no matter what color you are, there's a law enforcement officer, I believe he's in Flint, Michigan. His name is Sheriff Christopher Swanson in Michigan. He actually walked with protesters. Here's a guy that's protected. He's sworn to protect and serve. But I said God was smarter than all of us. He gave us 2 ears to listen and 1 mouth to talk. I want to commend law enforcement officer Sheriff Christopher Swanson in Michigan for walking with the protesters, not shooting them with tear gas, not shooting them with rubber bullets, not hitting them with a baton upside the head. He did what God gave us 2 ears. He listened. He was empathetic. Big C, that's a message that every police department across the country can hear. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, there's been many police departments that have walked with the citizens of America during this protest in a peaceful sense, Charlton. As we look at it, this is the obligation of police force around the country. This is why police officers got to stop saying the blue line. When you have bad people there, Charlton, you have to ostracize them. You have to get them out of your force because it makes every officer look bad. When they're being covered up, and just like these officers in Minneapolis after their firing, they all took the fifth. That means that they will not testify. They do not have to testify when they go to court. This is basically what happens when they're in the department. They take the fifth against each other. They won't testify against each other. When wrong covers for wrong, Charlton, you'll never have a good outcome out of it. We've had this for too long in America, Charlton, that the wrongdoings of some individuals in police forces around this country that have been covered up by others only has manifested the problem throughout the decades. And it has to come a time, Charlton, just like in baseball when they say the unwritten rule.
Yeah.
You can't have this unwritten rule in law enforcement. When you have a criminal within your ranks, you have to get rid of that criminal, Charlton. And the gestures that these officers are making and walking along with the citizens of America instead of tear gassing and rubber bullet using on them, Charlton, is a great humanitarian gesture. We need this every day.
We need it every day. And I want to, before I get into, thoughts and prayers with a legend that passed away at NBA, I wanted to step out to the University of Southern California. They cut ties with a prominent football who is an athletic booster, happens to be an attorney, her name is Marla Brown. She had tweeted some horrendous things that protesters should be shot. And USC cut ties with this booster, a lawyer, Big C. I know we say a person who represents themselves has a fool for an attorney, but some attorneys are also fools. But she put it out there, and USC did the right thing. So I know there's a lot of people around the country doing the right or wrong thing. We still got to ask for forgiveness when we do wrong. NBA legend Wes Unseld, Big C, passed away at 74 years old. He was the second overall pick in 1968's NBA draft. Imagine the turmoil our country was going through back in 1968. He became only the second player to win league MVP, and then in most outstanding player honors as a rookie, Big C. Our thoughts and prayers with his family, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you think about Wes Unseld, Charlton, and Wes Unseld was even greater than the NBA. When you think about his plight to get to the NBA, growing up in Kentucky, Charlton, they tried to recruit him, CM Newton, to Kentucky to be the first African-American basketball player at the University of Kentucky.
Yeah. But
he was told that he would have to get a black teammate to be a roommate to come to the University of Kentucky. He decided no, he would just go to the University of Louisville, where it was more acceptable for black athletes to be there, Charlton.
Yeah.
He was the second overall pick when he came to the NBA that year. And in his rookie year, he wins the most valuable player in the NBA as well as Rookie of the Year. Only one other player in the history of the NBA has done both of those feats. And we keep hearing this guy's name every time they talk about the greatest of all time, and his name never comes up in that conversation. Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain and Wes Unseld are the only players in NBA history to win Rookie of the Year and MVP as a rookie.
Yeah.
But he also, Charlton, helped lead the Washington Bullets to their only NBA title in the mid-'70s. And you think about the guys that he had to fight against. And you have to understand Wes, his stature. Everybody talked about Charles Barkley and his size. Wes Unseld was only about 6'6", 6'7", playing center in the NBA.
Yeah.
Playing against the likes of, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Nate Thurman, Bob Lanier, greats of that time, Dave Cowan, Walt Bellamy, all the great big men in the NBA, Willis Reed. He had to go up against these guys night after night when the big man in the NBA meant something.
Yeah.
He was a 6'7" center working against all these 7-footers. But he spent his entire career as a member of that Washington basketball organization, Charlton. Not only was he a star player that led them to their only title in franchise history, he became the head coach.
Yeah.
From the head coach, Charlton, he became the general manager. From the general manager, he became the president of the team, Charlton. He could not leave the Washington basketball organization. He was a lifer. He meant so much to that organization and that community.
Yeah, he really did. And I know, thoughts and prayers are with his family. There's a lot of things going on. Auburn's GOAT, legendary football coach Pat Dye, passed away over the weekend also. University of Auburn football had a lot of great teams down there and coached a lot of good young men to go on to do great things. I want to step into this story with you. I know we have about 15 minutes left, Big C. And when I hear about African-American men who've passed on, who also faced a lot of bigotry and they did what they had to do, I want to just make up something because I say it takes all people, and it does. I want to say California's 40th governor, Gavin Newsom, he rejects Donald Trump's call for military dominance over protesters in the United States of America, the land of the free and the home of the brave. And he said that the United States, African Americans are not the cause of racism. It's systemic, it's institutional, and we as a country. He said we as a country. He didn't say white people got to fix it. He didn't say black people got to fix it. He didn't say Native Americans. He didn't say Hispanics. He said we as a country have to fix it. I think Gavin Newsom would be a great president because he's prescient, he's thoughtful, and he's forward-thinking, Big C. Whether you're an athlete or a politician, we need more salient thinkers like that, Big C. Your thoughts?
Johnson, African Americans have asked for dialogue for decades, for hundreds of years. They've asked for dialogue. They've asked for a seat at the table, not in the back room, not on the porch. They have constantly asked for a seat at the table of equality, Charlton. That's all that black people in America have ever wanted. They wanted equality for themselves, for their children. They wanted an opportunity for equal housing, Charlton.
Yeah.
They want an opportunity for equal pay, Charlton. They want an opportunity for equal health care, Charlton. This is all that black people have ever wanted. They wanted equal policing, Charlton, from the police enforcement, Charlton.
Yeah.
So as we sit around, and I've heard throughout my lifetime, well, now is not the time for dialogue. What hell, when will ever be the time for dialogue? We've heard this. We've heard these statements over and over. All we've ever asked for is the conversation. We haven't asked for violence. We've asked for the dialogue. We've asked, how long will we be oppressed?
Yeah.
How long? How long before we get the chance to sit at the table? And those people in power, from the White House through the Congress, through the Senate, Charlton, those are the people who have to allow us a seat at the table. I love what governors say, but that's one state. We need people who encumber the 50 states, Charlton, to give us equal opportunity to sit at the big table.
You know, and I love what Gavin Newsom said, because he's a Caucasian man, and he's speaking for all people, that we all got to put our heads together. Would you believe Congress, they're still trying since 1990, Big C. The House and Senate have repeatedly failed to pass a bill call to make lynching a federal crime. Think about that. There's bills on POTUS' desk. He hasn't signed it as far as I know, but we've had military call to beat up and be rough with protesters with vicious dogs and rubber bullets and military. And I just think there's two different Americas we're living in. But I said many times before, when the Americans, predominantly white Americans that voted for POTUS, when he starts telling them whether they have conversation in private or in public, and we know it exists, when he starts sending them around their dinner table conversations, that he's going to shoot white kids, and he's going to shoot them with tear gas and rubber bullets and whatever else reason you call the military, that he just lost his election, because those are his constituents. When those educated women who go to school and they want to vote for this man, and he's going to tell them he's going to shoot their kids for standing up for their right to free speech, he just decided he didn't want to be in the White House anymore. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he decided he didn't want to be in the White House regardless of day one. He just wanted the power. He didn't want the responsibility because he never knew how to deal with or understand it.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to question the people that are around him in the White House, his advisors, people that are giving him the information that he's constantly tweeting and that he's acting on daily, Charlton, to deal with this country. So, you know, anyone who says you represent yourself, you have a fool for a client and a representative. I wonder about the fools that are giving him, you know, information. And we're supposed to have some intelligent people around him.
Yeah.
But when we look at the actions of our president in this country, where he's only about himself and not about the American citizens, not about justice, not about civil liberties, Charlton, but self-serving for him and his family, we have to wonder how low we have gone as a country.
Yeah, we got to make sure. I know even Tiger Woods came out. You know, people are always applauding Colin Kaepernick, and I really appreciate what Colin Kaepernick did, even before a lot of people could see it, Big C. And I know even Tiger Woods finally had some statements that he put on paper, and people were kind of beating him up about it, that he didn't say enough or he said too much or he's been quiet too long. But before you beat up Tiger Woods, you got to beat up the Caucasian Americans also that benefit from why Tiger kept his mouth closed in the first place. You know, that you just got to beat up everybody and not just one color of Tiger. I appreciate he did say something, but I want to ask you this too. New York Knicks owner, I told you the play-by-play announcer for the Sacramento Kings that They fired him or let him resign, whatever it is, for some antagonizing for African-American athletes that don't even play in Sacramento, and people started telling the truth about him. New York Knicks owner Tom Dolan, he issued a memo to all of his players. This is free speech, right? Stating that his club, organization, and team would not be making any statements in reference to the incident going on in Minneapolis regarding what happened with the murder of George Floyd. And to me, that's also silencing. He didn't use the military to do it, but for the owner to say, do not exercise your freedom of speech rights, Big C. What in the world's going on, your thoughts?
Well, this is common for Jim Dolan, the owner of the New York Knicks in Madison Square Garden. He's been anti-socialist ever since he's owned that team, Charlton. I think the anarchy that he has created in New York and with the New York Knicks and in the NBA, you know, we've seen owners forced to sell teams, Charlton, in the NBA. And this is one of those individuals, after this action, this is where the league needs to come down on him, the commissioner, and force him to sell the team. To be out there silencing everyone in your organization about making a public statement about what occurred with the murder in Minneapolis, Charlton, is atrocious. And to come from men of power, that you want to silence everybody about the negativity of America.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like when you talked about the lynching act that's been on the desk of the Senate and the White House, Charlton, about making it a hate crime. This was a lynching that we witnessed with George Floyd. That was no different than hanging him from a tree 70 years ago, Charlton, with police officers in attendance. This was the same thing with the police officers committing the execution.
Well, with Adam Silver being someone who has a lot of respect, from what I understand, by a lot of the athletes in the NBA, black and white, when you have what Dolan said and some of the things that he's done, and you allow that to exist, especially in this time, don't tell me that you're going to turn a blind eye to that, because that would lose a lot of respect. But you got to stand on your own morality, Mr. Silva. But the whole world they've seen an NBA owner tell his athletes or his employees, shut up and dribble. Don't say anything about saving lives, but we want to get you together in a bubble down in Florida so you can dribble. That's Adam Silver's shining moment. What will he do? We don't know. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on an app that I love called Google or Alexa from anywhere in the world. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. I want to read one thing before I close out with you, Big C. And it's something that I want to make sure that I read also. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Big C, we all gotta listen and talk, and I know you have a thought on that before we close out.
Well, Charlton, my only response to that point could be life, liberty, and justice for all. That is what black people have always sought out in this country since coming here and not wanting to be here. It's that since we have to be here, we want our life to be peaceful and tranquil. We want the liberty to have the freedom to move about and do as we please without being prejudged, Charlton.
Yeah.
The happiness that we can raise our families, our children, and have them prosper in this country without being under the watchful eye and the thumb of accusations, Charlton. This is what we seek. This is what we have asked. We have not opposed those things, but those things have been opposed against us as a culture for 400 years. I understand that everybody is not bad, Charlton, regardless of race and nationality. But when you oppress people for 400 years and saying now is not the right time, and eventually you'll get your place at the table, and any powder keg will explode, Charlton.
Yeah, we have to have a a right to vote, a right to freedom of speech, freedom of religion is all fair, love, war. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I want to thank those frontline healthcare workers, the nurses, doctors, and first responders, and also want to give this admiration out to former boxing champ Floyd Mayweather, who has stepped up out of the ring, Charlton, to take care of the funeral expenses for George Floyd and his family, Charlton, in Minneapolis. This was a very admirable gesture by Floyd Mayweather. When we talk about the sports world and the political world, Charlton, these are people that are coming out that don't have an obligation to do these things, but they feel that it's a human thing to do. And thank you, Floyd Mayweather, for your generous gesture to the family and the state.
Everybody, that's a very good gesture, Big C. As we always say, speak now or forever hold your peace. Everybody speak. You can speak every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you, on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.